Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to class 2. I am excited to be back again. We have got a full agenda. We have got people already in the chat. I love it. Hello to Ashley and Dabu Doodles and Tara Flute and Craig and Alexandra and Kayla and Chloe. Whoa, I see some familiar names from last night, which is awesome. I love it. If you were here last night, some of these early reminders are going to sound familiar, but hang in there with me. I love the chat. It helps me and it helps you. So the more interaction that you can do with the chat, whether you're answering my questions, you're taking part in our true false section, our yes no section, or you're just like repeating aha moments, I think is really helpful. Sharing stories, sharing your ideas. And I love everyone is sharing where they're watching from. We've got Minnesota and Austin and California and Ohio and Virginia. Awesome. And Philly, near Philly. So hello from Seattle, where it is still a little bit, we have a little bit of light, enough light that my neighbors across the street are still running a saw, working on some kind of backyard project. So hopefully you won't hear that. And I'm hoping that you have a nice, clear audio and video. If at any time I lose or audio or video or get fuzzy, just stay in the stream and I will come back. I meant to mention that the other day. Oh, and hello to O'Neill. Welcome back. Welcome back. So tonight is class 2. And we have 2 great topics. We have, of course, as we did last night, the how birth works topic. And today we're going to focus on the baby, and we're going to have some topics that sort of relate to the baby as well. So we've got our baby, and then we are going to talk about what to me is like the most critical, crucial, sort of like basic coping technique, and that is breathing. So did anyone have a chance to watch any of the homework videos? If you didn't, it is fine. I'm just wondering, let me know. I have been putting a link. I have been putting like this is class 2, like it's some kind of big thing that I've been doing, but I put a link in the description of this video to the playlist for homework for 2. And it's pre-work, it's homework. Watch it anytime. I think if you want some extra, it's great to watch. I'd also love to know, you guys can let me know in the chat, or you can always comment on the video if you're watching this in replay. If you are interested in getting like a daily update or a summary or a notification, is it hard to remember to come to class? I'm sure it's not hard to remember. You think about it all day long, right? I know I do. I'm excited about it. Again, if you find anything during class that's helpful, hitting the like button really helps me share the video, and YouTube likes to send it out to people when we get more likes. And just share it with anyone that you might find interested in this YouTube class, this free training. Now, night 2, again, we have 2 weeks, so 14 nights straight on through to the 14th of March. If you don't have a topic list yet, I recommend that you download it, access it. Let me pull up my banner for my topic list link. And there should be a link in the description too, but you can always get a topic list there. So it lets you know what we'll be talking about for the next 12 nights plus tonight. And what else about that? Yeah. Oh, I was going to say the replays. So whether you're watching this class in replay, or if you have to miss a class, you're not able to be here live, it's not much more fun live, because replay is great. But it is, well, it's fun for me to have you live. But if you miss live, you will have access to the replays. They will stay on YouTube for the full month of March. So all the business. What else? The last thing, let me just get out to you, is that tonight, if you're following along in the book, pages 5 12, and 26 we're going to talk about today. Those are great references. If you're interested in grabbing the book, and one pretty important piece of information I forgot to say yesterday, with the class kit that I have at this link, it's $19. You get the physical book. You get a fan, which I don't have access to right now. It's a plastic fan. It's awesome. But also you get access to the digital book and the 8 handouts that we'll talk about sometimes in class. But I wanted to mention the digital book because if you're waiting for this to ship, you can go ahead and check out the digital book for the same price at $19. So you get both. Forgot to mention that yesterday. Cool. How are we feeling tonight? Did anyone have any dreams about the cervix changing or do any horse slips today? Earlier today, I was walking through the house, and of course, we're all here because we're all working from home and doing school from home, which could sometimes be a little frustrating. And I said, and my husband was like, horse lips, which was awesome. Awesome, awesome. Oh, fun. Welcome to Manny. Welcome. Yay. Manny became a new member, which reminds me about membership. And I think we have one more member. I don't have a banner. That if you want to join the practice session. So I have an after the class practice. It's about 10 to 15 minutes right after this class. So it starts about 6:30, 6:35. You can access that if you are a member, which is just $2.99 a month. And it's in the join button. Okay. Chloe's feeling good. Yay. I love it. Hope everybody is feeling good. I'm going to remove my banners. And we are going to get started talking about the baby. Let me grab my model baby over here, which actually you can't really tell so much on video. When you're in class, you get a real good look at this baby. And this is actually a really nice model because it is a good representation of the size of the baby, both the head and the body, which is pretty cool and very realistic to be able to, see and check out. So the baby has, when we think about something that I didn't mention yesterday, and you're going to hear this several times, this number, but when we are trying to figure out how birth works, remember yesterday when we talked about the cervix and we talked about how it needs to change in 4 different ways, right? Does anybody remember what visual I used for that? The cervix changes at a different pace for everybody. So that can have an impact on how long our labor goes, okay? The average first time person in labor is usually about 18 hours, okay? So first time, that's quite a significant time. Well, some of the reason that this is different for everyone is the baby. So the baby can actually have an impact on how labor goes, how long labor is. And one of the most important things about the baby is, you guys guess. Tell me what you think. What kind of qualities about this baby does it have an impact? There's a few, but let me know in the chat what you're thinking. And I'm going to grab another prop that's important when we talk about the baby. This guy, the pelvis. So we can't talk about the baby without talking about the pelvis. Well, we can, but that's another important. Oh, Dabu noodles. I like it. Position and size. Position. Don says position. You guys are great. It's so interesting how this information has become much more talked about than it used to be. And position of the baby has really become a topic that people talk about more and more, which is great. And this is where I want to give you one of my top baby position takeaways, okay? And that is when you go to your appointments. Now, I know appointments look different than they might have previously for people getting maternity care. But when you go to your appointments, and I'm going to pull up my slides while I'm talking, there is something that I really want you to encourage your provider, remember care provider is your midwife or your doctor, to do. And that is ask them, especially when you're in your third trimester, what is the position of the baby? Because what has happened over time is sometimes some providers have become more hands-off and not doing as much really checking of fetal position as they used to. And what I want you to avoid is finding out that your baby is in a breech position too late in your pregnancy that you can't do anything if you're interested in doing anything. So I just walked through a few big concepts. I'm going to break it down. First of all, what is a breech position and what is a vertex position? Breech position is when babies, either their butt or their feet or their knees, are coming down first. The way that the pelvis is designed, the way that the head and the pelvis together work together, really the ideal way that a baby is born is through by head first, head down. You guys have all heard that. Is baby head down, right? Does anybody know? Let me know in the text if you know if your baby's head down. Sometimes you can feel kicks up high. Sometimes you can feel hiccups down low or little flutters down low where the hands are. And that's just a real basic position. So breech babies, if babies are not head down, they, in the United States, and I would say most of North America, are born via cesarean birth. Now, it's not a necessity. There are some is the key word, providers that in certain circumstances will do a breech birth by a vaginal breech birth, but it's more rare, okay? So knowing earlier, sooner, gives you options if you want to try to encourage baby to turn. So my number one kind of just straight out the gate thing that I want you to remember and think about is talk to your care provider about the baby's position as soon as you can. So a couple people know we've got head down at almost 34 weeks. We've got transverse. So transverse would be kind of straight across. At 31 weeks. So kind of straight here, not quite down, butt down, 28 weeks, head down. Great. So I love that many of you already know the position, but the sooner the better. Now, I'm not going to go into a full detail about breech babies because it is more of a specific situation. But if you know that you have a breech baby and you want to, your desire is to have a vaginal birth, then there are lots of resources, both on my channel and other channels and online about what to do about breech babies, include chiropractic and acupuncture, that kind of thing. Okay, so hands-on, ask your provider of position of the baby. The next positional thing, now we're going to just talk about when baby is head down. And I see a lot of you guys are using the terminologies, which is great. And actually, before I do that, when does baby, Killian's great question, Killian, when does baby normally move into that position? We really like to see that position in that late 20s, early 30s as kind of a generally when they get into that position. It doesn't mean that they can't change position later or still be not in a head down position, but really that beginning of the 30s-ish is about when they normally, if they're going to be in that position, that they'll stay in that position. Again, like everything in birth, there are, definitely a whole spectrum of realities for that. So the danger of a breech birth is it's not necessarily, let's just say about breech that the whole apparatus, the pelvis, the way the baby's head works, the baby's head molds as it goes through the pelvis. And so it's designed that the hardest part comes out first. And so if we can get the hardest part out, the rest of the body should come fairly easily. Sometimes shoulders can be a problem. That's rare. But with feet, we have our hardest part last. So that is the danger, that the baby will have difficulty being born if the baby is born vaginally breech. Now, the other thing that's, I would say, more challenging with breech is that it's not taught anymore. So OBs really aren't taught to do vaginal breech anymore. So without having that skill maintained, it's you don't see it a lot, you don't use it a lot, you're not confident and skilled in delivering vaginal breech. Great question. Good. 37 weeks. Okay. So you guys, a couple of you have mentioned this term, which I love, which is anterior, right? Baby facing your back. Posterior. Baby's sunny side up is another thing people talk about. Head down, sunny side up. So this is like the hot topic. This is what we've heard a lot of research. We've had a lot of research in, we've had a lot of discussion, and a lot of it is around trying to reduce the cesarean rate. Is a baby that is in that anterior position, that sunny side up, can we do anything to get baby not in a sunny side up position? So let me talk about the pelvis here. When the baby's head enters the pelvis, it can enter in different directions. Ideally, it enters kind of looking towards our side, but it doesn't have to. And the baby can rotate once they're in the pelvis. But sometimes if we have a baby that enters face up, okay, just like this. I'm showing you sideways because so you can kind of get the angles. This particular position, we also call it OP, occiput posterior. So the back of their head, that hard part of their head, is up against really our back. That can cause a few things in labor that when I talked about in the beginning, this 18-hour average labor, if we have baby in that OP position, sometimes we end up with a more difficult labor. We end up with a different timing with labor. Sometimes we have contractions that are short and kind of quick. Sometimes we have a extended early labor that we're not seeing dilation as fast. And the other thing that is particularly troublesome from the person going in labor is pain, a lot of back pain. So as we talk about contractions, which is tomorrow night, we will talk about the back labor, and back labor is often associated with baby in that position. So with all of this, you might be asking, or I would be asking if I was in class, like, Alice, so what? What do I do? I mean, baby, spin around, get in the right area. What can I do to help this baby? So, there is some research. There is some speculation. There's some ideas. There's nothing like definitive about what we should do or shouldn't do to get our baby in that position. There are some exercises. There's a great website that I put a link below called spinningbabies.com that has all sorts of information about things you can do leading up to labor. One thing that that keeps coming up, and to me, it's easy enough that I like to tell people to think about as they're in their last trimester, is to try to avoid sort of that recliner laying back position and have more of a upright, good posture position. And like if you were going to lay on the couch or something, like in a recline, lay on your side instead of that sort of recliner, you know, this kind of leaned back position. So other things that you can do to just encourage your baby to get in a good position, sitting on a birth ball a couple times a day is something that has some possible positives. And again, it's not really usually that hard for people. Also, visiting a chiropractor can sometimes help with hip alignment and ligaments, and just making sure that your pelvis is as prepared as it can be. So I have said a lot of words. What are you guys thinking? Are you following along? Have you guys heard this? Anyone who's had back labor, or people talking about being born steady side up? What's interesting is I have a video on the channel about OP babies, and it's one of my top videos where people visit it after they've given birth and comment and share their birth story or parts of their birth story on OP babies, which I think is interesting. I think it can be challenging enough that possibly people want to reach out and share their experience, which I sure appreciate. I'm looking for my tea. If you are drinking water, which if you're a pregnant person, make sure you have your water with you. And I'm going to take a quick sip. Also, I'm going to do a shout out to Samantha and Denny. Hi, Samantha and Denny from last class. I imagine they're with their baby and they're not watching, but they gifted me this cup, which was so sweet. Okay. Yes. Okay. Rachel got a takeaway. Good. Yes. Back labor. Dawn says, oh, I mixed the terminology some side up. Yeah. Great. Okay. So, it's something to know, maybe not something to right now know how to control, how to get our baby in that position. But there's a few things that we're learning now. And as I'm teaching other classes coming up, it's going to all come together for you. Like preview, we will talk about why movement in labor is so important. And a lot of it has to do with getting our baby in the right position in the pelvis. Okay. Let's talk about how we know when the baby has dropped and how we assess where the baby is in the pelvis. It's something called station. Actually, let me pull up my little visual. Sometimes I forget. I'm not a huge PowerPoint person. If we can all 57 of us watching right now and all of you guys in replay, if you could all fit in my classroom down the street, which would be amazing, I would be writing on a whiteboard right now. I love a whiteboard. Anyone in the chat love a chalkboard or a whiteboard? Let me know. Okay, so 3 things to think about. We have the baby, the pelvis, and that was my image of the water, the amniotic sac. Because remember, as I'm showing these images, baby is actually inside a fluid-filled sac until the water breaks. Baby is like inside a water balloon, so to speak, coming through. Okay, so I want to tell you about something called station. Station, yay! Jasmine likes a whiteboard. Oh, good. So we've got some whiteboard loves. One of the terminologies that we use, well, let's see. During a vaginal exam, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about effacement, remember the thinning, and we talked about dilation, the opening. So when they do a cervical exam, they'll say, you're 2 centimeters dilated, you're 50% effaced. The other thing that they can tell you is what station the baby is at. So that is, where is the baby in relation to the pelvis? So the baby starts at, there's a negative station, -5, 4, 3, -3, -2, -1, 0. 0, baby is halfway through. Okay, right at the ischial spines, at like the thinnest, narrowest part of the pelvis, that's 0 station. After they pass that, 1, 2, 3, then out. So if anyone's thinking like, how do they feel that? Yeah, it's a little strange. Let me get my cervix. It's to me, it was hard to visualize. So, oh, let me grab baby. Okay, so if we can, actually, I'm going to put the baby in here. And then this is, of course, a totally dilated cervix. But as the provider is doing a cervical exam and checking, they can push on baby's head and feel how far up it is. And again, it's not like a ruler. It's very subjective, but it means a lot as we are thinking about progress in labor. So remember, do you guys remember what we talked about the cervix is like? I know everybody remembers. That was here, or has watched class 1. Oh, O'Neill's a PowerPoint guy. Okay, O'Neill, hang in with my PowerPoint. Well, it's not really PowerPoint. It's more like slides. I do love a PowerPoint. What was what did our cervix, what was the item that I called the cervix or used to describe the cervix? Let me know. I'm excited to see. And there is a delay for me to see your comments. So if you're wondering, what is Alice doing? While the cervix is dilating, at the same time, the baby is working on fitting through the pelvis. Okay, so there are two things. So I love it. You guys are so good. For my answer, are you 26-1? Yes, the lock in the door. So our cervix, I did use a Chick-fil-A cup and a charger. You're right. You guys are right. Everybody knows the charger lid and the padlock. You don't go tell your care provider, I went to childbirth class and I know that it's just like a Chick-fil-A cup. Okay. No. Okay. So as you're in labor, your body is doing so much changing. Your cervix is changing. It's opening, it's thinning, it's changing from the charger to the Chick-fil-A cup. But at the same time, the baby is moving down, okay? The baby is moving down through the pelvis. Now, great question I saw from Rachel E. Rachel says, what station is the baby on average when labor begins? Rachel, I don't know what if research has given us like a standard on that. So I'm going to give you some anecdotal information. I have attended over 300 births. So usually the baby is when baby's head is engaged, it's a -2 station. So when baby has engaged, when baby's head is dropped, you guys have probably heard that. Has baby dropped yet? -2. Okay. So that is generally the start of labor. Sometimes people start labor and the baby is still floating. The baby has not dropped. I would say after 1 or more births, that dropping usually happens closer to the time of labor. And first timers, sometimes your baby's head can engage and then can unengage, pop out kind of into the pelvis and out. And the way that you might know that your baby's head has engaged, you might not. A couple of things that sometimes people feel, if you are usually feeling kicks up high, when the baby's head drops, you might notice that baby's kicks are lower. You might feel that you're able to take a deeper breath all of a sudden, or you're not kind of fighting with a foot. You also might feel off balance. sometimes when baby's head drops, pregnant people are like, whoa, I'm tripping because I'm totally off balance. So it can be, of course, it's different for everyone, but usually that -2-ish at start. Great question. Okay, so I like for everybody to know about station. And here is this story that I've seen so many times, okay? So what happens is you arrive to the hospital in labor. And you're in labor, like you've been doing work, like it hurts. It's been going on. You've been timing on your phone, actual labor. And you get a cervical exam. And at the exam, you get news that you maybe aren't really happy about. Maybe you are, let's say, 50% effaced and 2 centimeters dilated. Okay, 50% effaced, 2 centimeters dilated. And you're like, okay, I know I've got to get to 10 centimeters and 100%, laboring. So labor more, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you even go home and come back. Sometimes that happens. And then you get another cervical check. And they say, oh, and sorry, in the first one, your baby was -2. So 50% effaced, -2 station, and 2 centimeters dilated. Lots of labor, la, la, la. Then you go and get another cervical exam. And they say, oh, you're still 2 centimeters dilated. And you think, well, what the heck? I just did hours of work. But then you ask, well, what are my other numbers? Well, maybe your effacement has changed from 50% to 90%. Maybe the station of the baby, they say, oh, baby is now at 0 station. So you went from -2 to 0. Well, now we're looking at a whole different mindset and a whole different ballgame. That maybe our cervix didn't open, but it did a ton of thinning and our baby got lower. So we are still making progress. So it's a good number to know. It's good information. I'll tell you that as the baby gets lower, the baby's head starts applying more pressure to that cervix. So where's my, let's start here. As the baby applies more pressure to the cervix with each contraction, the uterus is contracting, it's pushing baby down. That cervix will generally open faster. And the pressure on the cervix, and as the cervix opens, it releases more hormones that help you contract faster. So it's like this whole series of events that work together to help move us closer to our goal, right? How awesome is that? So lower baby, more opening, more hormones, more contractions, lower baby. So it's all working together to open the door of the cervix and push baby out. Station, baby. Now, we didn't talk about baby's size and we talked more about position. Really, when it comes to it, position is more important than size. Now, size is something that I think a lot of us get kind of, well, I mean, rightfully so. It's sometimes scary to think about, this large being, making its way out and wondering about, how big is your baby? Is baby too big? That sometimes can get difficult with care providers. Some care providers are more wanting to quantify that, wanting to estimate it, do a lot of ultrasounds, and others are not. It really depends on how your provider feels about size of baby. I will say that the American College of OBGYNs, which is like the governing body of the OBGYNs in America, they say that the concern of the size of baby really doesn't happen until right about 11 pounds. And at that stage is when there might be more concern and more suggestion of possibly doing a induction or a C-section or something like that. So that idea of we suspect it's a big baby, we need to plan something, really isn't until the very large size of babies estimated. And the other thing I want to share is that the ultrasounds that you have that will estimate the baby's weight, the most accurate ones are the ones done earlier in pregnancy. That's so weird, I think, to me, that they're more accurate for size of baby earlier. And as you get closer to your due date, they become less accurate. So really at the end of pregnancy, in those late 30s, 40 weeks, an ultrasound can be off by plus or minus a pound. So it's a little bit, the information is a little hard to make decisions on because, you know, say they're estimating your baby is like 8 pounds. And you say, well, how accurate is that? And the stenographer says, the stenographer says it could be plus or minus a pound. So it's not it's not telling me much. If you say my baby's measuring 8, but it could be 9 or it could be 7, it's like, okay, that's not what babies weigh, between, 9 and 7 and 9-ish. So it's always good to ask those questions. We're going to have a lot more conversations about informed consent, about having conversations with care providers. So this is just a beginning mention of that. So yes. Okay. Kayana says, let's see. My baby was breeched last week at 39 weeks. Doctor wanted to do a C-section, but I decided to hold off. Now baby flipped back to head down thanks to moxibustion and acupuncture. Wow. Congratulations, Kayana. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. So that is great news. And that's a good example of, talking to your provider about your options. So excellent. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's amazing. Amazing, amazing. Okay. Baby dropping, la, 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 station. We are going to talk about our third image there on my slides, the splash, the membranes. So when we talk about water breaking, the real classification of it, and babies kind of like this inside the membranes, is, or the real name for it is rupture of membranes. So you might call it ROM, you might hear it called ROM, rupture of membranes. There's 3 types that we talk about. The spontaneous rupture of membranes. That's always the one that happens on TV, where they're just like walking around during the day and it's like, my water broke, which often doesn't happen that way. Especially during the day, we don't see that very much. So rupture of membranes, spontaneous rupture of membranes. And one of the myths, just to get right out there, is that a lot of people, their membranes, their water doesn't break at the beginning of labor. Usually, very often it happens well into labor if it happens on its own. Then there's the artificial rupture of membranes. So that's when your care provider uses a small hook, looks kind of like a crochet hook, to break the membranes, break the sac around the baby. And the other one is premature rupture of membranes, so P-ROM. That is when your water breaks before and contractions just don't start. Like you're lying in bed, your water breaks, and then you're waiting for contractions. So why it matters, why there are couple things that happen with our membranes around baby. First of all, remember the body totally sets up this safety system to keep baby safe. And one of the main things that keeps the baby safe is this membrane and water fluid filled sac that the baby lives in. And one of the things that keeps the sac is for is keeps out infection, keeps out any kind of bacteria that can cause an infection for the baby, which is amazing, right? We love that. The next thing, I'm trying to think about my pelvis, is that with the sac, if you can imagine the baby coming through the pelvis, maybe baby kind of needs to move around to get through. If the baby has a fluid-filled sac around them, they're able to move easier. There's more movement inside the sac, more ability to move. And when we have, then the other thing that happens, remember I talked about when the baby's head is on the cervix, it can apply that pressure. When there's a sac on top of it, like say we can imagine baby's still in the sac, there's less pressure to the cervix. So sometimes when that bag of water is broken, the baby's head is able to drop down onto the cervix, apply more pressure, and that can speed up labor, that process. Okay, let's see. Good question. I gave you guys lots of information about rupture of membranes. I know you have questions. Put your questions in the chat and let's see if we can get through that. And then we will go to our coping mechanism, breathing. Okay. How long after premature rupture of membranes, if that happens, should you wait before going to the hospital if there are no contractions? So really, Rachel, this question has everything to do with your care provider. So your care provider, depending upon who you see, it's so different. So we see home birth midwives have a much longer timing that they feel comfortable before contraction starts, before we need to do any kind of intervention. And then birth centers might have a different one. And then the care providers, whether you're seeing a midwife or a doctor, and even within the same city, we see different sort of policies on how long that is. And the other thing that matters is if you have been tested for group B strep. So group B strep is a bacteria that can live in your vagina, and they test you at right about 36 weeks to see if you're positive. If you're positive for that, you have to start antibiotics. And if your water breaks, usually they want you to come in quicker if you are GBS positive. Now, if I'm telling you a lot of stuff that you feel like it's going too fast, not you, Rachel, necessarily, but other people, these are topics I'm going to hit on again, especially GBS positive. We'll talk about again. Yeah. Yes, Dawn said, her OB said if water breaks, no contractions, still call. Yes. So it's not the danger of baby going without being in the fluids-filled sac. The main sort of danger to that is that risk of infection. So it's not that the baby needs the fluid to survive or anything like that. It's really the infection that we're trying to prevent, right? Yes, Michelle says, if you get your sac artificially broken, will it help labor progress faster? Yes. So generally, if the baby is low, in a low station in your pelvis, and your provider suggests breaking the water, that artificial rupture, in order to make labor faster, research says that the average time that it speeds up labor is about 20 minutes. So it's not a lot, is what research tells us. So, if we have an 18-hour labor and that speeds us up about 20 minutes. Now, that being said, that's an average. So sometimes it's the right choice and it's the right thing to do. And sometimes it doesn't make a difference. So it kind of depends. Yeah. Great question. O'Neill, I like this. Where does the vernix come in all of this? I love it. So vernix is what the baby is covered in. Vernix is almost like Vaseline lotion, like a lotion that the baby is covered in, which is awesome because they're living in this fluid-filled environment, and that covering, that vernix, keeps the baby's skin protected. And as the baby gets closer to their due dates, some of the vernix sometimes will get absorbed in. So it depends on when the baby is born. Like a baby born early usually has a lot more vernix than a baby born past their due date. And in class number 12, We are going to revisit all of things baby, right when baby comes out, and that like right after pushing, and the next 2 hours with baby. So we're going to bring up vernix again, but I love that question. That's awesome. Vernix is there. Okay, so the baby's position has a lot to do with labor. Let's do, I know I talked a lot, so I'm going to do a little test. I need you guys to get your chat fingers ready, okay? Because this is the time that I need some feedback, and I'm going to call on you. Not really. I'm just going to ask you to answer in the chat. So once the baby drops, will labor start soon? What do you think about that? What is your, did I mention that? Do you know the answer? This is one question that I feel like comes up in class all the time. Will labor start soon? Also, while I'm waiting for you guys to get your answers in, let's see. Can you see I'm just going to take you to my, I don't think I'm going to be able to reach. Today's affirmation, my baby and I work together, is today's affirmation. I hope I didn't show any of my messy part of the office. It's all outside screen, right? Okay. Sometimes, but not necessarily. I like that. Not necessarily. That's a great answer. It depends. Depends. Yes, it depends. So if you're at the grocery store and someone stops you and says, oh, your baby dropped, you're going to have a baby soon. Not necessarily. Okay, excellent. Love it, you guys. Great. Thank you for interacting in the comments. It's so helpful. So is movement of the baby easier when the membranes are intact? Membranes intact. Is movement of the baby easier? Do you like that? That was good. What do you think? Is movement easier when the baby is in that fluid-filled sac? Yes, that was easy. Now, where this comes into play in your mind, if your provider is suggesting, sometimes care providers just like as a matter of routine will just say like, oh, you're 4 centimeters dilated. Let's go ahead and break your water. You might think about if it's something you want done or not, because it does. Well, first of all, the bacteria, the protection against infection is gone after that happens. And then the other thing is the baby might not be able to move as well. So if we're curious, if we're wondering about baby movement, maybe we should, consider not breaking the water. Okay. We've got 2 more. Can the babies pivot and turn even after their head is engaged? So once they get in the birth canal, not the birth canal, the pelvis, once they're starting to descend, can the baby still turn? Did I give that away? I might have just given it away, the answer. You guys are doing great. I love all everyone who's so many of you guys are participating, which is awesome. Also, while you are waiting for me to see your answers, if you haven't hit the like button, hit the like button on the video. It's so helpful. Yes. I love it. Yes. Mercedes says yes. So the baby can still turn, even though it seems weird, but still turning. Last one. Does the position of the baby have an impact on length of labor and the pain experienced? Which I know you guys know the answer to that one. Okay, I'm pulling up, while you guys are answering that one, I'm pulling up my slides. One takeaway. If you have one takeaway from the baby conversation, let me know what it is. I'm checking all of our comments. Yes. You guys are awesome. You're on it. On it. What is your one takeaway from the baby topic? Let me know. And we are at our coping strategy, you guys. We are ready to talk about our coping strategy. And I'm going to pull that up right there. And I want to show you this just in case. Yes, OP baby could be longer and more painful. Yep, you guys know. You got it. Okay, if you have not stood up, stand up for a second, give a little stretch. Make sure that you have a sip of water. And we are going to talk about, to me, what I like to, I'm going to use this term a lot as we talk about coping techniques, and that is layering, like a layered cake. If you can picture a cake with different layers, the bottom layer to me is always the breath and breathing. And so that's why I'm really excited to talk about it today. Let's see. We've got takeaway difference between the ruptures of membranes. Yep. Great. Find out position of baby is in the 3rd trimester. Thank you, Killian. That was exactly my first thing. Good. Dabu doodles. You guys are doing excellent. Labor progresses so much. Yay. O'Neill says there's a lot, but all the numbers factors you have to keep track of. Yep. Great. I like this. Labor is highly variable. I love that. Yes, support is a common denominator, and we're talking about support right now with our breathing. Every time I teach a coping technique, I really want to encourage, whether you're watching this and you are the person who's giving birth, the person who's supporting, or maybe you're a birth professional, you have no excuse not to practice with me. Don't let me be the only one looking silly on YouTube. Please feel silly. The first few times that you practice these techniques are going to feel strange, but the more you practice them, they're easier they're going to be, and you're going to start developing that muscle memory. Now, again, we are going to do, after the class, we're going to do some more practicing of this, but I want to talk about it, and I want to show you one thing. I want to show you when we're talking about practicing as a team. In the kit that I know I'm mentioning it because I know it's so helpful to go along with the class. Again, if we were in person, this is what you guys would see. In the kit, you get this online where you get access to the handouts. This is where I pulled up the Limp and Loose and Labor last night. You guys, again, everybody do their shoulders. One of our Limp and Loose ragdoll. In there is this ebook. So the ebook is Tin Partner. I'm looking at my other screen. Sorry. It looks strange. And one of in this ebook, and it's a great quick start for partners, is a technique that I like to call mirroring. And let me bring it up. The page. There it is. So I actually call it Man in the Mirror just because I'm trying to make things easy to remember, and that's my favorite Michael Jackson song. So what this means is that if whatever your support person, the person that's supporting you with breath is so key to know how to breathe. Both people have to know how to breathe. And I find that mirroring it is the best way to do it. So I'm going to mirror it as I teach you, and you are going to practice and mirror it back to me. Okay? Okay. So let me pull all my banners down. You guys don't need the links anymore right now. As a Lamaze educator, we used to teach a lot of different patterns. And by we used to, this is many, many years ago. Now, we have the freedom to teach whatever we want as far as breath. And to me, the easiest, the most effective breath is a deep breath in, filling up your lungs as much as you can, a small pause, and then a slow breath out as slow as you can. Okay? So deep breath in and deep breath out as slow as you can. Now, generally, people use their nose to breathe in and their mouth to breathe out, but I don't care. Do it however what works. A lot of people also suffer from pregnancy sinusitis. If you're feeling like stuffy nose pregnant, that is very normal. So that happens. So you might just have to use your mouth. So mouth, nose, I don't care. But what I want to do is walk you through a few big, deep breaths in and out and show you what it looks like. And it's going to look really basic, but I'd like for you to do it alongside with me. So before I start, let me know in the chat if you're ready to do some good, deep breaths. And I'm going to answer Miss Romero. If we get the kit, do we get access to a digital book and handouts and get mailed to us? So yes, so you get the digital handouts and the digital book. I mail you the physical book. I don't mail the physical handouts, but I do mail the physical book. I hope that answered your question. Okay, so before I do any kind of practice, I like to use some of those limp and loose techniques, right? Everybody's ready. So let's say a contraction comes. Filling up, small pause. Still having a contraction, deep breath in. Pause. I hope that looked about as basic as can be. Now, one thing I want you hopefully to have noticed are my hand movements. If you're a support person, take note of these hand movements. I did in, I paused, and I did out. This is great because if you practice with this with your partner, you can be across the room. If you see your partner doing something that is the most common thing, which is this, a holding breath, you can just go like this. I don't know how many times I do that personally as a doula when I'm supporting someone in labor. When you are going through a painful sensation, say the contraction comes, right? Holding your breath. And you look over and someone's going, you see that and you go, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to breathe. I love breathing because it's simple and powerful. Using the breath. I mean, we're all breathing all the time, right? But what I'm talking about here is using breath, harnessing breath as a powerful way to cope with pain, but also to cope with anxiety, anxious feelings. This is a great thing to remember if you have a cesarean birth and the surgery, you get anxious about it. It's something everybody can do. You can do those breaths. You can do that noticing the breath, calm breath. You can, I worked with interviewed a coach that was at my children's school about their birth experience. And they had a complication where they couldn't get an epidural, that her platelet count was low and she couldn't get an epidural. It was completely out of nowhere. She had not prepared at all. And he said the main thing that saved them was just breathing together, breathing that long, slow in and long, slow out. So it's huge. It's something that can be practiced now, and it can be practiced anytime you feel discomfort leading up to Labor Day. If you feel strong Braxton Hicks, if you're feeling gas pains, if you're feeling any of those lightning crotch moments, If you know it, you know it. Lightning crotch. That's sometimes when baby is hitting the cervix, hitting a nerve a certain way. Everybody is super quiet in the chat. Let me know what you're thinking. Did that breathing explanation seem super simple? And yet, can you feel like it would be powerful? Let me know. Also, to everybody watching in the replay, I have a hashtag childbirth replay. I love to see it. I saw a few comments on yesterday's video about childbirth replay, which was really fun to see. It's like, I love it, replay. It's great. Breathing, remember, is our bottom layer. And if we were going to put breathing with our limp and loose, our coping techniques, we would do, let's say, palms up was one of the techniques. Yes. Breathing. Good. Okay. Natalie says, I'll need reminders to breathe. Absolutely. It is. Everyone does. Everyone does. It's so important. Debu Doodle says, any breathing techniques for those who have asthma? My recommendation is just do your best. Don't feel like you got to get this big giant breath in, big giant breath out. Do what is a good level for you, but I do recommend practicing so that it feels comfortable. I would say that's my biggest tip. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's what I want you to feel. I want you to feel that it's pretty straightforward. I love these comments. Love it. Lightning crotch. Yes, the breathing is helpful. Great. Wonderful. You guys, thank you for being here tonight. Now, tomorrow night, we are talking, it's a huge, important night. Not that they're not all important, but we're talking about contractions and kind of talking through the stages of labor and what things look like and how things go as far as the uterus contracting. And we're learning about movement. Movement is amazing, and I'm very excited to teach class number 3. If you want to support the channel, I really love likes. I love if you share it. I tried to share it in Reddit, but I got kicked off because I wasn't following the Reddit rules, which is like, so embarrassing. Anyway, if you want to share it in forums or places, it's a free class. So it's great to have your help and sharing and getting the word out about it. If you have questions about anything we talked about tonight, don't hesitate to leave a comment in the video. I try to reply to everybody's comment and get to it and be ready. So be ready for tomorrow. If you ordered a kit yesterday, they shipped out today. So it's one day. So I put them out today. And if you order one tonight, they'll be out tomorrow morning. So I am looking forward to another night. Again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your interaction in the chat. And if you're joining me for the practice, let me pull up. I know I have a banner about this. I don't. Let me write. Oh no, I do. Oh no, I didn't. Let me just write the URL for practice. You can also get to it from the channel. You know, I feel like I have everything together. After the class, I'll see you guys over there now in about 2 minutes. And thank you. Oh, O'Neill, you snuck in. Let me get your, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thanks, you guys. Practice. See ya tomorrow. Have a great night.